Yes, that's right. It's the Survivor Know-It-Alls. We are live here on a Wednesday night after Survivor. Sorry about the delayed start here tonight. I just got back from delivering a bunch of backpacks to the poor children of Los Angeles. So
Wow.
we are here and we are live here. Stephen Fishbach, how are you doing tonight?
Wow, so he did it, Rob. He actually did it. Spencer won Survivor Cagayan. I cannot believe it.
Now, are you being you're being facetious?
No, like what else are we left to deduce from this episode after we see all of these tensions inflaming Tony's alliance, and Spencer, who throughout this game, Spencer has had this perfect edit. He's just looked like this strategic, smart, nice player, the only person left other than maybe Wu, who we can even really root for, and he somehow survives. And the big question for us all along the way was there's just no way. There's just no way Spencer can do it. There's one of him, and there's 8 of them, and it can't be done. But I thought this episode was like, oh, it can be done. In fact, it's gonna be done.
Well, I'm very surprised to hear you this bullish on Spencer right now.
Spencer or.
Because I'm actually feeling 100% like he's going to get voted off next episode.
Wow. I mean, how do you think that he's gotten this perfect hero edit? Who, if not Spencer? Who are we left to care for? I mean, Cass looks horrible and petulant. Tony looks like a jerk and a bully. Trish is screaming at so-and-so. Wu kind of looks like a dope. Maybe Wu. Tasha's gone. I feel like there's someone else. Yeah, that's it. That's all there is.
All right, well, let me set up this show, and then we're going to go talk through everything that happened on tonight's episode of Survivor. Of course, we're live here right now on a Wednesday night on RHAP.com. We've got the chat room going. Everybody is chatting. Messages are flying past my face as we go along. Plus, we got our Twitter open, hashtag RHAP, and then we've also got our YouTube channel where you can post your comments, and we will read them on the show later on. Go to RHAP.com/YouTube. Steven, I have got a spectacular podcast coming Thursday. Well, first...
Oh, I thought you meant today. What about the spectacular podcast we have right now?
That goes without saying. But on tomorrow morning, I will speak with Tasha and ask her about everything that went down this season. I know you guys are going to be interested to hear what she has to say. And then on Thursday, boy, I'm spoiling you guys this season. Not giving away spoilers, but you guys are getting... I'm not going to be able to top this on a regular basis. We are going to talk with Richard Hatch tomorrow.
Whoa. Wow.
About what is going to happen here in the end game. And then, after Richard Hatch, we're going to take your voicemails tomorrow with Parvati Shallow.
Oh, my God. Winners. Wow. Back-to-back winners. And Richard loves really strong strategic players, so I bet he's loving this season. I bet he loves Spencer. I bet he loves Tony. Very curious to hear what he has to say about everything.
Yes, Parvati is going to be here with me live in the studio tomorrow, and we're going to talk through everything. So get your voicemails in on the voicemail line at robhasawebsite.com/voicemail, or call them in 323-282 RHAP. So that's a big Thursday coming to RHAP. All right, Steven, here's where I want to start tonight. Did Cass make the right move here tonight?
Yes, 100% yes. And in fact, the fact that Cass was, the early part of this episode where Cass was convincing herself that, now was the time to vote out Tony because he was a bully and she was going to flip over to go with Tasha and Spencer. And the fact that she could somehow argue to herself that this was like the right smart decision just kind of shows the level of delusion of Cass. Because throughout, Cass has said, I want to go to the end with the jerks. Tony's a jerk. People don't like him. And Spencer and Tasha, everyone is rooting for them. Like, obviously, you don't go to the end with Spencer and Tasha. Now, can Cass beat Tony? We don't know. But we know she can't beat Spencer, and she couldn't have beaten Tasha.
So I feel like for Cass that ultimately she did make the right decision, but I feel like her path to get to that decision was a costly one. And I know what she did in the end, where she felt like, okay, I'm going to flush the idol. And this was her big plan of, okay, I'm going to stick with Tony because I want to go up against him in the end because he's the jerk. And that's why I'll win in the end because I'm so likable. And because of course she'll be able to argue that point across to this jury, because probably more people on the jury hate Cass than they hate Tony. But I think Cass was like, oh, I'm going to make Tony think he's getting voted off, and then I'm going to flush the idol. Now, I don't think it started that way, but I think that's where she ultimately went. And she said at Tribal Council, I think it's going to be a blindside tonight.
You know, I think you're being very generous with Cass, and you know, and maybe that's partly true. Maybe that's what she tells herself. But you know, clearly this was a move that was prompted by anger and frustration at being left out and at being out of control. I mean, not out of control. And I think that, you know, the one thing we saw very clearly about Cass tonight is she needs to feel like she's in control, and anything other than that, she feels disempowered and does, you know, erratic things. And you know, we certainly saw that when she flipped on you know, on her first alliance after at the merge, where she felt like she was no longer in charge of her alliance, and therefore she could not, you know, she wanted out entirely. And then we saw that again when Tony kind of went behind her back, and now and only when she felt like the power was hers did she make a smart decision.
So you feel like because she had the power back, that was why she ultimately ended up going with it. So you don't think that she was trying to flush the idol?
I mean, I'm sure that's what she tells herself, and I'm sure that that's like a very smart, acceptable interpretation of events.
But why? But hold on. Why say it's going to be a blindside at Tribal Council if it's not going to be a blindside if she's not trying to flush the idol?
Well, I mean, it was clearly a blindside of Tasha, right? Like, there's, you know, Tasha clearly.
I guess so, technically.
She was, yeah, no, and like, you know, everyone always says it's going to be a blindside at every Tribal Council, you know? Like, whenever Jeff is like, is someone going to be surprised tonight? Someone's like, yeah, I think it's going to be a blindside tonight. You know, that's like par for the course. Like, someone saying it's going to be a blindside doesn't mean that there's like some greater strategic motivation. That said, you know, I mean, Cass is obviously a very smart person, even if she plays somewhat emotionally sometimes. And so, like, I'm sure that was part of her motivation, that the possibility of flushing the idol. I don't doubt that was there in her head. I just don't think that was her primary driver in this situation.
But there's something a little bit off with Cass, and I've said it earlier in the season that I feel like Cass likes to play the victim. Now, we had the incident tonight where Cass claimed she heard Tony talking about her, and she claimed that she heard Tony say, oh, did you see what a bitch Cass was being? And every other player in the game said, I don't think that happened. And also, production didn't have any footage of this. So
Tony's saying, like, how sick she was. Oh, Cass must be sick. And then Cass hears, Cass is a bitch. Like, there's a little bit of assonance there.
Yeah. And so he was saying that she physically was sick, and maybe she thought he was saying she's sick in the head or she's sick and angry about what happened. But Tony was not talking about her, but she thinks she hears this, and this gives her the validation to start to provoke Tony into this fight.
Well, I mean, you're really like imputing like a lot of like you know, rationality to Cass in this situation, where, you know, what looked to me what was happening was that Cass was pissed. She woke up pissed, and she thinks she hears Tony talking about her, and then Tasha is there in the shelter egging her on. You know, Spencer's egging her on, like, yeah, I think they're talking about you, Cass, and she gets really angry and flips on someone who she has tried to rationalize as her number one ally to the end, because she thinks of him as a Hansian jury goat. You really given her a lot of credit to say, well, she creates this narrative that justifies her actions. Like, you think that this was all rational.
Well, I think that more often than not, everybody does things that make sense to them. And now we know everything, and what Cass was doing doesn't make sense because we know the whole story. But if you sort of try to look at it from what Cass thought, I feel like there's good explanation for the things that she did, even though they were the wrong things to be doing.
Now, see, here's where we fundamentally disagree on human nature, Rob. You say everyone does things that make sense to them. I say everyone does things emotionally for reasons they don't understand, and then justify it to themselves after the fact.
Maybe not. Who knows?
Yeah.
So then after all that, they end up getting into the thing, and Cass's argument with Tony, and actually I believe Tony. He was like the boy that cried wolf, but I always say I believe the person who gets into the no, you have to believe me. I feel like the liar is much more like, hey, you believe what you want. Okay,
Right.
I know what I said. You believe what you want. That's not what I said. But Tony was like, no. Cass, I didn't say it. I wasn't talking about you. And he was, and then he got upset over it, and then he eventually spilled the beans about the idol. Was that a bad move or a good move on Tony's part to reveal the special idol?
Well, from your perspective, it's a strategic move that he planned out, right? That's what you're saying? No, clearly it was a bad move. Clearly it was not. I think anything done out of anger or out of emotion, is not going to be the best thought-out move. I think Tony has created this aura of himself as always having special tricks, up his sleeve. He had his bag of tricks even when there was nothing in the bag of tricks. So ultimately, and everyone also knows Tony's a liar, so it doesn't really cost him that much to say I have this special idol. Maybe now people, maybe it's more of a target on him. Maybe he looks more strategic. It can cut kind of any way. But I don't think it's a horrible move. It's not a great move. What do you think, Rob?
I think it worked in his favor, even though I didn't agree with what he did at the time. It worked in his favor because there was a lot of like, well, is he bluffing? Does he have it or doesn't he have it? And I feel like it created a lot of confusion, which I think worked in his favor ultimately. So I think it was a net positive, and he sort of played it like, maybe I have the item, maybe I don't have the item. Maybe I got it in my bag of tricks, maybe I don't. So I thought it was good, and I felt like Tony had the best night out of anybody in the show tonight.
Now, do you think that Tony should have given an idol to Trish if he at all suspected that she was on the chopping block?
Well, that's a very good point, and that was going to be my next question of did Tony play this correctly? And ultimately, everything worked out for him, and I was thinking about this at the time. I was like, oh, he's crazy to not play an idol, but then I remembered he has the Tyler Perry idol, so even if the votes came up Tony, then he would still be able to play that idol and still keep his hidden immunity idol. I feel like it was... I don't think he even suspected that a split vote was there. So had he suspected that a split vote was in the works, I don't think he thought of that. I think he thought that all the votes were coming on him. Do you agree with that? Do you think that he thought a split vote was potentially happening?
Nope, I totally agree. I think he thought all the votes were coming at him, and he didn't even see the possibility that Trish, when Trish's name came up, everyone, even I think he looked a little surprised at that moment, and she certainly looked surprised. But do we know the rules for these idols, like when they can last be played? Because they're at the final 5 now. Someone said, well, he can only play it at 5. That's typically true if it's a final 3, which we also don't totally know about. But do we have a sense of when the last time these idols can be played is? Because it seems like that's going to be a pretty important determinant in how far Tony goes.
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, I think that the prevailing wisdom is that they can be played one more tribal council, but I don't think we even really know. And I thought it was actually interesting tonight that Cass, at one point earlier in the episode, she mentioned a final 3. At tribal council, she said, well, whatever it is in the end, final 3, final 2. Oh. And it seemed odd to me that Cass would raise the specter of a final 2 at tribal council when there hasn't been one in 10 seasons.
Yeah. In fact, Token Sheens, the last one, we broke the final 2. It was such a great duo. They could never match that. Do you think if Tony gets to the end and wins, does Russell Hantz win the fishy? Is it Russell who he has to thank for that?
Because they felt like, oh, maybe he's our Russell.
Yeah, because they're keeping Tony around thinking oh, this guy is just like Russell, and everyone hated Russell, and Russell always got shut out. I mean, he always lost. So we should keep our Russell around.
Should we do a season of all of the Russell versus Russells, where it's okay, last season we had Colton, who was the gay Russell.
Rob, stop talking. Stop talking now. There are people listening to this show who are going to make that happen. You got to not stop.
Can we get the black Russell Hantz, the woman Russell Hantz, get every sort of race and gender? Can we get a beauty Russell Hantz?
You don't know what you're unleashing on the world, Rob.
His Survivor Hantz-ageddon.
Oh, yeah.
There you
Jeff
go.
Probst just is wiping his brow
Yeah, Tyler Perry is mid-text right now. Okay. So let's go through Tony, and I feel like we have to give Tony some credit here because that all season long we said we don't know if Tony's a good player, we don't know if Tony's a bad player, but you have to give Tony this credit. Tony can read these other players extremely well.
Well, Wu was horrible. Like, yes, like baseline, Tony is incredibly good. Wu also was really bad.
Wu was terrible. Wu was really, really terrible, and I want to talk about that more in a moment. But even the whole thing with Tasha about how, normally she's like, wants you to talk to me, she wants to talk to you. Now tonight, she don't want to talk to anybody. I think that she feels safe, and so something is up. And so very astute on Tony's part.
Yeah, absolutely. He totally read. But let's also talk about Tasha's that fake non-scramble thing, pretend, like, that worked. I think that did work one season. I think it was like Survivor Palau or something, where Karen, pretended to be that she was going out when she really wasn't going out. But, like, this is 18 scenes after Survivor Palau, and the game has changed. You cannot do that fake non-scramble thing and expect anybody to buy it.
Yeah, that was not a good job by Tasha.
If someone could tweet at me what the actual season was where that happened, I think it was Palau. I would really appreciate it because I will probably use that in my blog.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the whole thing with Wu and Cass and Spencer on the reward challenge. Steven, would that make you warm and fuzzy seeing those guys go and bring some stuff to the kids?
There was one a couple seasons ago with, I think, Malcolm, where it really was sort of like great and emotional and touching. For whatever reason, and maybe it's because my heart has thickened and calloused in the intervening years, but I didn't love this one as much.
Yeah, other than Wu, Cass and Spencer weren't probably the two best people to go. Where, Malcolm was really like embracing the kids, and one of the girls said, she said that, will you be, can I be your girlfriend or something like that? There was something like that. Don't quote me on that. But
it was like a great sincere moment.
Whereas Spencer said, I kind of hate kids. I really don't want to be around them, but I guess this is okay.
How much luck has Spencer had, by the way, with these rewards? Like,
he's got on every one
game, but also like it's always with the person he most needs to talk to. So it's like him and Tony, and then it's him and Wu. And granted, like the Wu one didn't work out, but my God, like these are some game-changing rewards. I was going to give the Fishy to the reward challenge if, in fact, Trish had gotten voted out, but now I can't. So that sucks.
So anyway, Wu, it was like a night of high highs and low lows for Wu. Yeah. He has probably his best moment on the show since he stole the clue to the hidden immunity idol, and he gets to do all of his things. And I'm thinking, wow, if Wu can get to the final tribal council, boy, what a speech this would be. Of okay, for my next trick, I'm going to do a backflip for you guys and show you guys how I flipped many times in this game. Okay, no, this is actually.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say that was that the first time that Wu actually flipped in this game?
Well, he's talked about it a few times. Like really early on, he talked about kind of taking out Cliff, and then he sort of didn't. He wasn't a part of that.
I was making a acrobatics joke, Steven.
Oh no, I thought you had made that and then had moved on from there. So, but no, we're still making it. Go. I'm so sorry.
No. Anyway. So he was very impressive with everybody, but then we had the very funny scene of the okay, I'll consider it.
Yeah, which was great. Which and then Spencer making fun of him saying that. But you know what? Like he's gonna be sincere. And then he says, "Okay, I'm in," and then he's immediately convinced not to be in.
Yeah. So. Was it, and this came up on Twitter, and I wish I wrote down who asked it, is it a knock on Spencer, and I guess to some degree Cass, that they did not tell Wu, here's the fake story. We said to you, blah, blah, blah. You said, no, this is what's not going to happen. Don't you always need a fake story?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think that's a really good point, is that, there just wasn't that... he didn't go in prepared. And like, do you blame Wu for that? Like, who's this naive, like, or do you blame Spencer? I always do think that it's the strategist's job to, alliance management is like the number one responsibility. Make sure your stories are straight, make sure your backup stories are straight, make sure everyone in your alliance feels loved and tended to. And I do think that's sort of where Spencer, as smart as he is, and as such a fan of the show as he is, has kind of dropped the ball a little bit this season. And I'm excited to see him in the future season, where he has had these few moments where he hasn't really built an alliance based on love. And in fact, this is one of the reasons I think Spencer is going to win, is because when Cass flipped the first time, like, I think Spencer should have been all over that. He was partially responsible. And we didn't see it. We didn't see Spencer got inoculated from that. But this is a little bit editing specific, so we'll move on from that. But could Wu win? We saw some nice confessionals about Wu. Cass saying, "I really started to respect Wu today." Could Wu win this game?
No.
You don't think there's a Fabio? Come on. Whoa. Wu, Trish, and Tony in the end? Come on. Wu, Trish, and Tony, and Wu wins.
I would, I would not like that.
What? Okay. You think that would be an unsatisfying ending to the season?
It would be an unsatisfying ending to the season. I feel like, and Fabio, I was sort of happy when Fabio won, because I felt like he was likable in a way that I have not quite embraced Wu in the same way. And I feel like now maybe if Wu goes on an immunity run and he gets to the end in the same way Fabio did, and he wins like final 5 immunity challenge, final 4 immunity challenge, and potentially final 3 immunity challenge, I might change my story on that. But
know what? Okay, go ahead. Oh, people are very changeable. Like, no one even knew who Brett was until the final 6 or the final 5 in Survivor Samoa, and then he suddenly became like the number 2 for fan favorite because he won 2 immunity challenges in a row. Like, you can get excited about someone real fast with that kind of run.
Yeah. So I don't think that Wu is going to be your winner of the season, because I kind of feel like I'm not even sure he could put together a great jury argument, where Fabio, I feel like, actually did a pretty decent job in the jury part of that. I'd have to go back and watch that, but I feel like he spoke from the heart and was actually a pretty sincere compared to Chase and Sash, who were sort of being a little fake with everybody, of trying to like, oh, I'm really sorry. And I feel like Fabio took the more straightforward, direct approach, and I'm not sure if Wu has that gear.
But the Wu story is, I'm not Tony and I'm not Trish.
But you need more than that. You need more than that. And I'll give credit to Natalie White, because everybody says that, oh, she did so great in that jury speech where she actually got to know everybody. Do you think that Wu is going to sit there in front of that jury and is going to be able to tell people like Sarah and Morgan and LJ things about themselves and how they took such special interest? Cass said this was the most I've heard him talk the whole time we were there. I can't imagine that Wu was that, likable to the point that they can give him the money over somebody like Tony or Trish, who have played a much more strategic game.
Here's the thing about this season, Rob. I don't care who wins. Most seasons I feel like you need a real good winner to be a capstone for the whole season. This season is such a disaster and such a mess and so many flips and reversals and realliances. It's like you kind of expect some rando to like come out on top, In fact, the season deserves to have a rando come out on top in some like total WTF win. I would be very satisfied with that. Be satisfied with a Spencer win. Be satisfied with a Tony win. I'd be satisfied with a Trish, Cass, Wu. I'd be satisfied if Tasha comes back and wins it all. I think this has got, the chaos has been the theme of this season, and chaos is how it should end.
I'd say, from what I've seen right now, I'll say Wu is the only unsatisfying winner you could give me at this point.
Okay.
because
I would be satisfied. You know.
Yeah, I feel like he's been the floater out of anybody. He's been, the one person who I feel like has just been along for the ride and has not been at the heart of any of these big moves.
But what a ride, like when you see an amazing surfer riding a huge, crazy wave and they're able to stay on top of it and not get knocked off, give them credit.
We've spent too much time talking about probably the least interesting strategic player in the game tonight. Let's get back to Spencer, because we opened the show tonight and you said, that's it, lock it up, Spencer is your winner. Yep. Now, I didn't see it that way tonight. I feel like Spencer, maybe even if the cast gets voted out next, potentially, I still feel like Spencer, unless he can go on an immunity run here, and that's entirely within the realm of possibility, I don't see how he gets to the end. So, especially if it's going to be a final 2, which is definitely in the cards here. I feel like a final 3, I could see him winning 2 more challenges and getting there. He'd have to win 3 to get to a final 2. So tell me how you see it happening.
I think one of those votes is maybe Tony getting voted out, and then the other, or not. I think maybe he does immunity his way to the end. Maybe next week is Tony being like, you know what, I hate Cass, I'm getting rid of Cass, or Tony being, and that's the one vote he needs, and he gets 2 immunity wins. I just based on the chaos and the insanity, and based on how good Spencer has looked at every moment. Now, maybe he's that guy who's one shy of the finish line, who we're supposed to root for, the Malcolm of this season, the Rob Cesternino of this season, the Aaron Lobdell of this season. Sorry. But, maybe he, that's possible. But I just thought somehow this kid, every week you think that's it for him, and he's always there. And, as an immunity competitor, he has always been in the mix at the very top, and the person who's always knocked him out is Tasha, and she's gone now.
How does he get through next week?
Immunity, or they decide to take out, Cass. Tony's like, you know what, I'm sick of Cass's BS. Like, let's just get rid of her. We don't need her anymore.
I feel like that would be a big mistake to vote out Cass next week.
No, I agree with you. That's why, because Spencer would win as a result. That would be a big mistake.
However, if Spencer wins immunity here at Final 5, then I do think Cass would get voted out next.
Yeah. I mean, I think that too. I think Cass is, this might have been the sort of beginning of the end for Cass. This sort of, inflammatory rhetoric tonight.
So let's just play that out. Okay, so next week, Spencer wins immunity, okay? Yeah. And then Cass gets voted out there, and then it gets them down to the final 4. So the final 4 is Spencer, Tony, Trish, and Woo, okay?
Right.
And so now we have another immunity challenge here. I guess if Spencer won immunity there again,
yeah,
right? If he doesn't win immunity, he's gone at 4, right?
Sure. Yeah, totally.
So he's got to win immunity at 5, immunity at 4.
And then maybe a final 3.
Who goes home? Then Woo would go home then out of Trish, Tony, and Woo?
No, well, if it's a final 3, Tony goes home.
Why?
Because his idols are no longer useful, and he's the biggest strategic threat.
But who votes for Tony? Trish is going to vote for Tony? The best they could do is force a 2-2 tie, and I guess Spencer's wearing the necklace, but...
So maybe you're right. Maybe they make the argument, oh, you know what, Woo needs to go because he's so nice. And it's like the Carter argument from Survivor Philippines. Like, oh, he's so nice. No one hates Woo.
Yeah. And if you're Spencer and you're wearing the necklace, you might as well say, hey, Woo, vote with me. At least force a tie. You're going to go home. Otherwise, let's vote for Tony. And maybe you have a 2-2 tie there at 4.
Right, just for drama.
For drama. And
this is now fully fan fiction.
I like when you talking to the microphone for that. But anyway, that's what we do. So we're just totally speculating. But so basically, recipe for Spencer going to the end and winning the season is just keep getting that necklace.
Now, is Spencer a Cochran that doesn't suck?
Well, I'm not sure exactly. He posted that in his bio, that he was the Cochran that doesn't suck. I'm not sure exactly at this point how you would say he was a Cochran that doesn't suck, because he's basically played the opposite game of Cochran.
Totally opposite. Cochran, go ahead.
So I don't see how he's a Cochran at all.
Yeah. The only similarity is that, plays on the margin a very smart game, and both Both winning crucial immunities. I don't actually think Cochran sucked, obviously, but they're not totally dissimilar. As strategic fan players who reacted well to the situations they were in and made smart marginal decisions.
Okay, so but if Spencer loses an immunity challenge the rest of the way, he's done, right?
I think it's possible that he would stay alive next week just based on antagonism with Cass. Okay. I think that it's possible that they would say, you know what, we have the votes and we hate Cass so much that we want her gone.
One more question for you before we get to questions from the audience. What's Cass's plan here now?
So Cass wants to be at the end with, it looks like Tony and Wu or Trish. Who does Cass think is going from that group, though? That's what I want. I'm very curious to find that out, because clearly she thinks one of those people will not make it to the end. Somehow she believes that she will be at the end with Tony and either Wu or Trish, but not both. And what that is not clear to me.
I feel like Cass did a bad job of trading in an ally in Trish for an alliance with Wu.
Right. Well, maybe it is Wu. I mean, maybe she thinks people like Trish, and Trish has made some crucial moves in the game.
I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how she sees herself. I mean, I think she saw this as, okay, we're going to flush Tony's idol tonight, even though I know you disagree with me that you don't think that's what she was doing. But
no, I mean, I think that was there. But anyway, go ahead.
Okay. And then we would have to have, then I guess she would think that Tony was vulnerable next week. I'm not sure who she would want to vote out, and then maybe vote out Spencer at the next vote and then vote out Wu, but I'm not sure exactly why she thought they would get rid of Wu over her or Trish over her.
Right, exactly. That's what I don't get. So next week when Cass goes, because either Spencer wins immunity, I'd be very interested to have you ask her that question.
I know I said that one more thing before the questions, but my other question I wanted to ask you that I just remembered was it the right move for Spencer and Tasha to work with Cass on going after Tony, or should they have stuck with Tony and I guess Wu at that point and said, hey, Tony, you're mad at Cass. We hate her too. We want to vote out Cass with you this week. Would that have been a better plan?
No, I don't think Tony. I think they know Tony's too smart for that. I think Cass is on the margins of that alliance. I think they saw an opportunity to convince Cass that she was, to convince her that she has power. And you know what? I'm sure they sold her on the brains back together again narrative. That would be a very compelling narrative. And as much as they hate each other, they still have history. So I think I'm sure they knew that there was no chance Tony would bite at that. And
but
Cass
why not? Why not? Last week they went to Tony and they said, "Oh, hey Tony, did you hear what Jeffra? She said she wanted to vote you out." Couldn't they go back to Tony this week and say, "Oh man, Tony, Cass is she keeps talking about how you said she was a bitch and she's trying to get everybody to vote you out." And he's like, "Yo, she wants to vote me out this week? Then I'll vote her out and she'll go home."
Well, the whole thing with next week though is because Jeffra was a swing vote. And, look, ultimately, Cass's point at the start of this episode was exactly the right point. Tony, you were upset at Jeffra because she was maybe going to flip, but Spencer and Tasha are actually against you. Jeffra maybe was going to vote against you, but they do vote against you. And, I think Tony is smart enough to know that.
Okay. Who's the more sage and wise 40-year-old? Trish or Tony? Oh, I'm sorry, Cass or Tony?
Tony.
Whoa.
What do you think? What do you think?
Talk about a real... that's a real Sophie's choice there.
Yeah, what would Sophie say? Sophie? We need to have a little Chiron or bug. When we get a Sophie's choice, we go to Sophie.
Is watching the show. I think she can tweet us. Okay. If not, she's just tweeting to me and not watching the show.
So I do want to say, as much as I have kind of ragged on Cass for being emotional, I think she's a really fun player to watch. I really like Cass because she does she's both incredibly analytical, but also gets hot-headed and upset. And that's the greatest player to watch, is someone who is both very strategic but also a little bit erratic. So I love Cass as a character.
She's been good TV this season. I can't take that away.
Great TV, yeah.
Yeah.
And I just love her withering sardonic confessionals. I'm delighted with Cass.
The one thing, again, with her that gets under my skin, though, is, when Cass wants to flip It's like, hey, I'm flipping because you didn't make me feel good about my position, so that's my right. I get to flip. But if anybody else wants to flip, that person's an idiot. That person's stupid. That person just threw their game out the window. And so I feel like it's very hypocritical.
But that's what I like. Hypocrites make great television.
That's true. Yeah, it's chaos time. It's chaos time. I'm feeling like I want to flip. I want to change the game up. But if anybody else does it, that's why he's an idiot. That's why he's stupid. So you can't have it both ways.
Yeah.
Okay.
Question
time, Steven.
Question. All right. Energizer61 Bunny wants to know, do you think Trish's association with Tony will hurt her if she makes it to the finals, kind of like how Parvati's association with Russell did? Rob, what do you think?
I don't get that sense. I mean, is that why Parvati lost in the end? I felt like it was that all of the heroes banded together and they all decided to vote for Sandra. I don't think it was that Parvati worked with Russell. I mean, I guess and maybe that's why they banded together, but I don't think that was necessarily the case. But Steven, you know more about that than me.
No, I mean that is what I had heard, was that Parvati just had this reputation as sort of like being Russell's minion, and the way she cozied up to Russell during the game made other people a little bit like grossed out by her. On a game level, still a great person, obviously. Okay. I would be curious to see what Parvati has to say about this. I kind of think that it could. I think that I think the people in Tony's shadow are going to look bad for being in Tony's shadow. I don't think that Trish or Wu has been able to really get out of it.
But how many people on the jury really hate Tony the way people hated Russell Hantz?
That's the thing. Like, I don't think it's the same, and it seems like actually people have kind of a good respect for him.
Yeah, I mean, who are the people that Tony really burned up? LJ and Jeffra. Those are the two people he really blindsided. Yeah,
I guess so. And even with Jeffra, he had sort of a reason for it.
And you kind of feel like those votes are votes for Trish anyway.
The Jeffra LJ votes?
Jeffra and LJ, they're voting for Trish no matter
what.
Right,
Boston strong.
Boston strong, and so they
and blonde strong.
Yeah, Trish had their votes anyway, so I don't think that was that bad of a job to get rid of them. Also, you would think that Cass, if she's not in the finals, you would think that she's not voting for Tony either.
Yeah, probably not, because she'll be voting for Spencer along with the majority of the jury.
Yeah, but I still think there's enough votes there for Tony to win.
You know what? I would love to see a Tony win, but like part of why I want to see a Tony win is because Tony's edit has been so up and down, and I would love to see a person with a flawed, crazy, erratic edit win the game in the end.
I would like to see Tony in the finals. I feel like that I would feel robbed as a viewer if we don't get to see Tony defend this game in front of the jury. I feel like that would be the greatest theater that we could hope for in the end. Whether he wins or whether he doesn't, I feel like is sort of irrelevant to me. But I would love to see him stand up there and defend this game.
I completely agree.
Yeah, and let's see if he can do it.
Yeah.
I'm not rooting against him. I would love to see Tony get up there and make the amazing case of here's why I should win the game.
I think Tony should win the game.
Yeah, it would be great. It would be great to see, and also he could get up there and blow it. We've seen people do that. Coach was in a position in Survivor South Pacific where if he made the right case to the jury, he could have won that game, and he did.
Come on, Rob. You think that like the case you make to the jury really is determining the votes at the end? Come on.
You don't think that you could win people over in the end?
I think you can win one or two, lose one or two, but the way that worked, all of Savai voted against Coach. That wasn't like some bad argument at the jury. That was just, he plowed through them in the game, and they were,
Did Coach do a good job with the jury?
No, he didn't do a good job with the jury, obviously, but like I just don't think that I don't think the jury is making their decision at that time. Like how often does it happen that anyone actually changes their vote in the jury?
Well, how about this? Who is the person besides yourself that made a great case to the jury and lost?
But the thing is, we see it only after it's been edited, so we see the cases based on the winner. We see like.
But if you made a great case, can they edit it to be a bad case, other than they just take out all the good parts?
I think they made mine worse. I'm not saying I made a great case. I had a pretty bad jury performance, but they managed to select the worst and not the good parts of it. Yeah, I think so. And then also you have people who, like Russell had a pretty strong case. Like, I fooled you all, in Survivor Samoa. And he came out and, he lost.
I have to go back and watch the Samoa jury speech and see how that went. Okay.
But,
Brent Wolgamont wants to know, didn't Tasha help Cass make the right decision by saying that Tony was their version of Russell? Terrible campaigner. Was that part of the decision when she said, yeah, he's just like our Russell,
well, that's
the guy
certainly
who goes to the end and everybody hates him and he doesn't get any votes?
I mean, it seemed like what Tasha was trying to play up was what a jerk Tony was, and how how gratified Cass would be when she got him out of the game. It's a fine argument for a different person. Like, that's the problem here, is that Tasha didn't get how smart Cass is in that way about Cass wants to go to the end with a big jerk. So by emphasizing what a jerk, maybe someone else, maybe Jeffra would be won over by that, but it's not Cass.
Because she's like the Natalie White? That would be exciting for her?
What? Oh, who? Cass or Jeffra?
No. So what if Tasha said to her, he's like our Boston Rob?
Right. That's what she should have said.
I don't want to lose to Boston Rob.
Yeah, that's absolutely what she should have said. He's our Boston Rob. He's made every big move. We got to get rid of him, or he's going to win in the end. That's 100% what she should have said.
Hey, Tasha, smarten up. What
if he had said, she had said, he's our penner?
Then they would say, well, we'll vote him out.
I'm just trying to prompt your impersonations.
No, we don't have that kind of time. We don't have that
Okay.
MMA Junkie X wants to know, Steven, how good do you feel that you would have won immunity tonight if you were in the game based on your performance in this challenge in Tocantins?
I feel great about that. In fact, every challenge I see, I think I would have won.
But this wasn't the same as the challenge that you had won in Tocantins, right?
It wasn't, but it was based on running out and remembering things and running back. It did look pretty hard though to count those the crosshatched sticks. Like that looked like I think I would have struggled at even the counting part of this challage. But no, I would have won.
Strategy?
I would have won, and I would have actually won. One out, and I would win the $1 million.
What would be the right strategy? How do you win this challenge?
Wow, I think you do it 3 at a time. I mean, then you go twice. Or there were 6 or 7 things. Also, it was hard to tell. Was every one of them a 20-something number? Then you just remember the last digit rather than try to. I mean, anyway, whatever. We can talk about this till the cows come home.
What I liked that they did was that you had to, each time you tried it, you had to go back out and come back. Because there was a challenge on Big Brother Canada this season. I don't want to bore you too much with Big Brother Canada, Steven. But where they had basically some sort of puzzle and you had to answer questions and sort of, it was similar in that. And there was one guy, he's like, I'm not even going to try to guess the thing. I'm just going to try every combination. And then he won the challenge without even trying to answer the questions. He just kept trying every combination until he got it.
Well, Survivor has learned the lessons of Big Brother Canada.
That's right.
Yeah.
They will not suffer fools on Survivor Cagayan.
Full Play Jacket wants to know, at every vote since the merge, Trish has stuck with her alliance with Tony even when Tony himself flips on said alliance. She never takes part in the betrayals herself, always playing a loyal alliance mate. And she always takes Tony, ... Maybe there's a question, maybe there's a second part of this where there's a question.
Yeah, so the long questions don't come through, but how about just talk about that as a strategy, that she never flips away from Tony. Now, is that going to help her game, or is that going to hurt her game in front of the jury?
I think the fact that she sort of played, down her alliance could only help her, right? She has stuck with her alliance throughout. I think it's the moments when I feel like if a different alliance votes you out, you can respect that more than when someone in your own alliance flips on you and betrays you. And I think that voting down the roster like that is the best way that you can sort of minimize the anger from people.
But for Trish, it's almost like a brilliant move because it's like she gets the benefits of the moving up in the numbers as Tony flips and then comes back to her, but she doesn't get the blood on her hands.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Almost as if she said to Tony, hey, Tony, I like what you're doing here, but I can't get that, I don't want that person to be mad at me, so I can't vote with you guys. He would vote her off right away if she said that.
Yep.
But the fact that he's just like, okay, I'm not even going to ask you if you want to be a part of this. I'm just going to do it. And then she just forgives him. It's almost like she's getting the free pass. Like what we said with LJ and with Jeffra, she's got their votes.
And I mean, in that way, in the really positive way, she is like Natalie White, where she is, she's made some crucial decisions along the way. She's influenced some crucial votes, but ultimately she's kind of voted with the Russell Hantz, and he's really been the one who's pissed people off, and she's just sort of been there, creating bonds with people, and creating enough of a story for herself where she could, justify her win to the jury at the end.
All right, let's take 2 more questions here, okay?
All right, Erica Show wants to know, I thought Wu was smart. If they split the votes, Tony could have played one idol for himself, then the TP idol for Trish. You can't. Then he would have had 2 people pissed at him next week. Is there any way that Wu flipping could have worked? So you take this one, Rob.
Okay, so let's just play it out here. Okay, let's say this plan went through for the split vote, okay? And let's just say they played the idols in the way it could have been played, where Tony played his idol for Trish. He can't play the Tyler Perry idol for anybody else, okay? So now the votes come in, and that's 2 votes Trish, 2 votes Tony, and 2 votes Tasha, okay? Oh, we have a tie. So now Trish can't vote, Tony can't vote, and Tasha can't vote. So now Spencer, Cass, and... So Spencer, Cass, and Wu will now vote. And now if they put their votes on Tony...
No, they can't because he's played the idol, right?
But he hasn't played the idol. So you don't play the Tyler Perry idol until after you get voted out. So he might be saying there like, go ahead and vote for me, but it's not going to work. So if they put all their votes on Tony, then... It's almost like, okay, Tony, that's 3 votes Tony, the tribe has spoken, then he takes out his idol, and then I'm not sure exactly how that plays out.
Right, I guess they probably would have had him just play it, at the moment, right?
Do they just say, okay, Tony, now you pick who goes home?
I guess so, yeah.
I'm not sure how that would work.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's an interesting point.
We don't understand how it works, but I'm not sure if that would have been if it would have been a good move for Wu under any scenario. And maybe Tony says, Cass, you go home. Now Cass is gone, and I guess Wu would then sheepishly have to go back to Trish.
Why?
Tony.
Why wouldn't Wu just stay with Tasha and Spencer in that narrative? That's the thing. It would not have made sense for Tony to give an idol to Trish, because if he did, he could very easily have just been gone the following week. Then even if he had saved Trish, he still spends 2 idols. He still has 3 enemies in the game, and they can take him out next week. So for him, it still would make sense to lose Trish and have 2 idols in his pocket.
Okay. People in the chat room tell me you can only play idols on the first set of votes. But again, Tony's idol, okay, that Trish would play her idol before the votes are cast. So those 2 votes for Trish do not count. Okay? But Tony's idol, he can't be voted out with it. So you can't say Tony can't play the Tyler idol after the revote. You can't get voted out with it. You get to play it after the votes are read. So don't say he has to play it before the votes are read. When you get to play Tyler Perry idol after votes are read.
Yeah, that clarification that he has to play it first was true for the normal idol, but we don't presumably the Tyler Perry idol does not work that way.
Okay.
You want to take this one, Rob?
So maybe you say okay, you get to play. It's fine. He's not going home. He can't go home with Tyler Perry idol. Okay. Shelby Kilmer, last question. Should Tony want to keep Spencer next week? Someone he can point to in the Final Four as being a bigger threat than him, even though Tony has the best shot in any Final 3 scenario.
No.
Tony's got to get rid of Spencer. No good can come from this.
Yeah.
Got to get rid of Spencer. Spencer's only shot, he's got to keep winning the immunities. If Spencer can not win immunity and figure out a way to stick around next week, then my hat will go off to him.
Yeah.
I'm not even wearing a hat. I would put a hat on just to take it off to him.
Seems really excessive.
That's the length I would go to, Steven. All right. Who was getting the fishy tonight? Was it Tony?
I haven't thought through it. I think it probably would have to be Tony because he likes
Tony.
But why? He wasn't responsible for Tasha getting voted out, was he? He sniffed the deception, but he didn't actually change Wu. Cass changed Wu.
But
I mean, if anyone was responsible for the vote, it's Cass.
She undid what she did. I mean, you want to give it to her and say,
no,
okay,
I
she
don't.
realized that she called an audible that her plan was bad and went away from it?
I don't know, man. I just don't know who to give it to. Give me some ideas.
Tony, I gave it you ideas. unless you're gonna give it to Spencer because you feel like Spencer's gonna win the game, but I feel like you're not giving Tony. Give Tony some credit here for.
But what is the move he made? What is the move Tony? Tony got rid of Tasha. I mean, I guess Tony deserves it.
Okay. Look in the kingdom of the blind, the man with one eye is king tonight.
Don't see what you're going with there.
If whoever did it, if nobody did anything that great strategically, but if he was the best of these people, then you have to give it to him, or give it to, or make up so give it to Jeff Probst again.
Yeah, get some of a fun one.
Let's have a fun one.
Yeah.
Give it to Jeff Probst again.
The casting, Moreland Spillman. All right.
All right.
Oh, I wanted to give a shout out. I met a great Know-It-Alls fan. I was getting ice cream in Williamsburg, which I love to do, and I met Mary, who was an ice cream scooper. She said Steven, and I was like, well, excuse me, I thought I was screwing up in some way, and she was like, I love the Know-It-All. So there you go, Rob. Fans on the street.
Are you sure this wasn't Eric Reichenbach?
Maybe he motivated the ice cream scooper community.
Maybe. All right, Steven. I normally frown against shout-outs on the podcast.
Oh, I didn't know.
In your instance, I'll let that slide.
I was just so tickled. As a know-it-all,
There you go. All right. Well, we have a big Thursday. I told you, Tasha in the morning. We're gonna have our exit interview. Plus, we're gonna be doing This Week in Survivor History. By the way, Stephen Fishbach, you came up in This Week in Survivor History this week.
Oh, most handsome contestant.
Well, you'll have to listen to find out.
Why are you laughing? Yeah.
In the exit interview once again, and then we'll do our big podcast. Look for it late Thursday night, early Friday morning. Richard Hatch and voicemails with Parvati Shallow. Get the voicemails in. robhasawebsite.com/voicemail or 323-282-RHAP. All right. Steven, great job tonight.
Yeah, great job to you, Rob. Really great job. I feel like this was a good one.
Yes, very, very, very good. Lots of fun. Jessica Frey, thanks for your questions. Thanks to everybody who watched us live and everybody who listened in the archives, too. Thank you guys so much, and have a great night. And going to be a big Thursday on the RHAP. Talk to you later.
Woo! Bye.